I want to build a very morally well business.
I think for a lot of people, you know, that the actually being able to understand that they are going to get no's, they are going to get people that turn around and, you know, give them hard no's.
The background I come from, you know, we're told, I'm Asian, so the background we come from, we're told to be a doctor, a lawyer, or anything that's, you know, good for status.
By the time your first deal is not going to be your best deal, because there's a lot of learning curves, a lot of things that you realise, you know what, I might not have spent that much money on that bed linen. Welcome back to another episode of the Property by Kazy podcast with myself, Kaz from Property by Kazy. Now, we are back each and every week with an amazing guest, and we made sure we did that this week. We've got Leena. How you doing?
I'm okay, thank you.
Now, you are one part of the dynamic duo. So even though she's not here, we got to make sure we big up your business partner. So what's her name?
It's Property with Usman on Instagram.
Property with Usman, so you can connect with her as well. Now, I say dynamic duo because they have taken on 12, you heard it right, 12 rent-to-SA properties within the last approximately 12 months. I understand that you have a further 8 in the pipeline, so that's taking you to 20 units potentially. Now, I know a lot of people that are suffering even getting their ideas together about where to start. Before we get into how you got there, what made you want to get into property in the first place?
Yeah, so of course, I'm very young at the moment, well, arguably very young, so I'm only 21 years old. I first got in 19, so I was doing my first year of university. I was studying law, and at the time I had a part-time job at Morrison's. I just wasn't a fan of, you know, the management at Morrison's. It wasn't the best. Of course, they're very they pick and choose who they favour, and you know, I just felt like it wasn't fair. So yeah, I definitely feel like that was a pushing point to just going and doing what I really want to do. I did follow a few property people, and of course from looking at that, I managed to self-teach myself from reading, of course, rent-to-rent books, and also going to networking events. From there, I think that's where it started, where, you know, I took the action to actually get my first unit. And yeah.
Okay. And you're from Coventry, right?
Yeah, I'm from Coventry.
But all of your rent-to-rents, from what I understand, are in Birmingham. So what was it? Why did you choose Birmingham? Was it accidental? Was it by design?
So I've actually got 10 units in Birmingham, and then I've got 2 units in my hometown.
Okay. Which was the first one, Coventry or Birmingham?
It was Birmingham, yeah.
Okay, so what made you move over slightly to Birmingham?
I think it was because Birmingham's the most second biggest city in the whole of the UK. Sorry, in the whole of the England. So I thought, you know, why go for... I was against investing in my own city, because when you're from a city, you know all the bad things about your city. So I thought, I'm going to avoid Coventry because, you know, I didn't come from the best... I don't live in the best area. So that's why I just stepped away from Coventry and just went straight to Birmingham. And I felt like, you know, there was decent occupancy rates in Birmingham that I could achieve, and that's exactly what we decided to do.
Nice. So when you say you started out, you said you sort of read some books on rent to rent, but what was it like? What did you read and you said to yourself, you know what, I want to do this? Like, was there a point that made you say, this is something that I want to pursue or try?
I think it was just the actual taking part bit that I was struggling with, because before, you know, those years I was trying Forex. I was just trying to try all these different, you know, side hustles, what they call it. And I think it was following a lot of property people where I thought, you know, let me just give it a try. I know it's really bad to go in blindly without any, you know, mentorship or anything, but I just gave it a try. I was in my first year of university at the time, when I was getting interested in, and then I eventually took a gap year to get my first unit. And then I said to myself, I'll give myself 12 months to see if this will work out. And then luckily it did. And it's still, you know, I'm still looking on scaling as much as I can. But I think it was, you know, more so not happy with the way everything was going. So of course, I didn't want to be a lawyer, even though I was studying law. I just chose law because I didn't know what else to choose. And of course, the background I come from, we're told I'm Asian, so the background we come from, we're told to be a doctor, a lawyer, or anything that's good for status. But yeah, I just didn't see myself wanting to be a lawyer, especially with the amount of hours.
How did your parents take it when you said, I want to focus on my business? At what point were they like, okay, we can see this is actually working?
Yeah, so I never told them actually when I first got the keys to the unit. I was absolutely, I was really scared because I've got the keys to my first unit now, and I have to actually pay rent per month now. And at the time, the rent was £800 a month. Of course, bills is going to come to 1.2 a month. At the time, I was only making about £400 a month, so it was a massive risk I took. That's why I didn't tell my parents, because they're just going to be against it. Like, of course, they've come from another country, so I'm Bangladeshi. They've come from Bangladesh to the UK, to escape the risk and have the security. And for me to start my own business is like the most riskiest thing that I could do. So I just was too scared to tell them, and I think they've slowly found out what I'm doing, and I don't think they're still happy with it. I still think they want me to go back to university, but I feel like I'm still aiming for that part where I could finally say, Mom, Dad, I don't need to go to university. But I feel like even though if I was making £100,000 a month, they'd still say, when are you going back to university?
Yeah, culturally it's a thing, and I think parents worry, and it's just because there's they think of the risk and what if, and this can't last forever. But I definitely think sometimes, like I said, I was speaking to Ethan and speaking to Aaron, and they kind of had that light bulb moment with their parents when you're explaining to them, and you're like, some of the deals that you're doing, and single properties, you're like, that's a yearly salary, the amount of money that you're making. I saw some, your TikToks do really well. Saw some interesting TikToks from you, and I think it was saying something along the lines of, you started that first rent to SA unit, and you were hoping to make £500 a month, and said sort of down the line, how much did that first unit, when it sort of started all running correctly, how much did that first unit start making you?
It was making a lot, to be fair. So in the first month, I think actually the first month was a loss because it was not the best season that I started in. But the second month, it started to get more into the busy seasons. So from the second, third month and onwards, I think I was averaging about £800 per month. And that's after, all the bills, all the Wi-Fi stuff.
And I guess that's it. So effectively, you've doubled your income. From your previous income from your first unit. So talk to me about getting on that first unit, because you said it was a big risk. Was it, obviously you had a partner?
Yeah.
What made you pick, your current business partner? What sort of skills sets, what things did you see in her that you thought, we would work well together?
Yeah, so Uzma's actually my best friend. She's been my best friend since, we were about 7 years old. But with this first unit, it was just myself.
Okay.
And Uzma, I think at the time she was working in Costco, I think. So we're both friends, and of course I go off and I'm just I randomly have this apartment, keys to an apartment. And of course I told her about it. I said, Uzma, this is what I'm doing. Are you able to help me? Because as bad as it sounds, I am a girl, and it's very hard to carry all these heavy furniture into the apartment. So of course she was there to help me, and she wasn't getting paid. So of course it was every day where she'd help me after her work at Costco. She'd come to help me with the furniture building and stuff like that. So yeah, and of course after seeing that, I wouldn't pick any friend to be a business partner, but after seeing that she was willing to help for free, and she was willing to put the hard work in. I've still got videos of her, just literally just brushing away like all the dirtiness of the apartment when we first got the unit. After seeing that, I think that's what really,
that real, outside of the friendship, the graft, the hard work, the dedication.
Yeah, that's when like.
And she was committed to seeing you win as well.
Yeah.
She wanted to see you win.
She knew that she wasn't going to gain anything out of it. It was only until I got the second unit when I said to her, do you want to do this together? But yeah, for the first unit, it was just myself. And yeah, it kind of grew like that.
I saw you mentioned being there, because I think a lot of people, they like the idea of entrepreneurship and being the owner of their own business, because of the glitz and glamour side of it. I don't have a boss, there's nobody to tell me what to do, I just gonna call my staff. But I think you early on showed that you're willing to kind of roll up your proverbial sleeves and actually get dirty. And you show that in your
Yeah.
TikToks. You're there. I see you putting up furniture. I see you standing on chairs, putting up blinds. Do you think you've learned a lot of skills in like early on when you were doing a lot of the work yourself?
Yeah, and I'm glad I was doing a lot of the work myself. You know, I'm glad I wasn't the person to like show how glamorized the actual business, because it is glamorized. Unfortunately, you know, where they say, you know, I don't even work and this money comes in passively. I personally think passive income doesn't exist, and I don't think it ever will, unless you know you've made a whole investment fund hedge, whatever it's called. But yeah, I'm glad I've, you know, learnt all the skills when I was putting in the graft and when I was being a bit more hands-on. I am less hands-off now because I believe in, you know, sourcing it to other people that, you know, I believe in more income generating tasks. There's no point in me spending all day trying to do the wallpaper up like I first was doing.
You did the wallpaper.
Yeah. So
You are a gangster. I tried. Wallpaper's hard. Like, if
Yeah.
anybody's tried to do wallpaper, just know that she says, so if you did the wallpaper, I need to come and did the lines match up?
yeah, they match perfectly. I mean, it did take about 3 times, but I think I am definitely a pro at wallpapering. So if
Okay.
anyone needs help with wallpapering,
Wait, listen, I mean, hourly rate's gone up right now, but if you need a little tutorial, she's your girl. That's good. Okay, so you found a business partner. You found that you obviously it's somebody you already trusted. You've seen that they've got the good work ethic. You're working together. But again, let's kind of take it back a little bit. To get that first deal, obviously you said you're more of a practical learner. You learn by doing. You
Yeah.
dive head first. You sound like somebody who has a really high risk tolerance because you rented an apartment for £800 knowing that you only had £400 to pay if it doesn't go well. How did you, what was your first sales pitch to that landlord? How did you convince them that, they should trust you and work with you?
Yeah, so the pitch I gave to the landlord, so I already told him before I even went to the viewing. I said to him, I actually want to have this on a company / corporate let. And he replied back on the messaging. He said, you know what, just come to the viewing, we'll talk about it there. And I was quite surprised by this because, sometimes it's like a straight no, like, no, go, move away.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's that with like some landlords, but
that's polite as well, right?
Yeah. So, so he said, okay, come to the viewing. So I got ready, I was like making sure that I smelt nice and everything that you need to do. But yeah, I went to the viewing and I basically just said everything, how all the services that I generally will be providing. So I want to build a very morally well business. So that's exactly what I was telling him. So I said to him, hi, I'm just going to say his name is Jeff. Hi, Jeff. I really want to rent your apartment, reason being, and I won't be staying in it, but it will be one of my family relocations company that will be staying in the property. So let's say, so I'd say to him, let's say, God forbid, that his house was to get into a fire. He'd need somewhere to stay for the next 2 to 3 months. That's where my company would come in and I'd help to accommodate him while his house is getting fixed up. And that's what I basically pitched to him. I put himself in our guest's shoes so he can understand the type of people that we accommodate. And from looking at his face, he looked really excited. Like, I just saw the way he was like nodding his face at everything I was saying. But yeah, I think it all comes down to how much confidence you have. Of course, this was my first time actually pitching to him. I did go on a few viewings before that, but I felt like the confidence was definitely there that day. And I think without that confidence, I don't think it would have fell through.
That's good. I think for a lot of people, that they actually being able to understand that they are going to get no's, they are going to get people that turn around and, give them hard no's, give them, quite rude. And you have to be able to dust yourself off, go again, and also create the rebuttals and the objection handling. But I think one thing that's really important that you touched on there was, actually finding that pressure point of maybe like, of what does this landlord want and how can I make sure that my values match up to what they want. So for example, if you said you're all about creating an ethical business, if you see that that's really important to the landlord, explain that. If you know that now your business is really profitable and the landlord just cares about whether or not they're going to get paid, you can also explain that. So I think it's understanding the type of landlord you're dealing with and then putting across how you can help service their requirements. So that's property 1 done. couple skills learned, wallpaper ready, business partner on board. Now you're saying, okay, you got your proof of concept and you want to grow. For people that are wondering, about the hard graft, how many apartments do you think you look at online before you go and view somewhere? Like,
Oh God, I was, because I was only working part-time, and of course it's flexible. I was I was making sure every day I'm waking up at 9 a.m. I'm going straight on Rightmove, Zoopla, etc. I'm putting all my interested properties in a pipeline. So I used a software called Trello, and I'd put them all in there. So I'd say it was about, I'd say all together before I got the first unit, it was about, 200 properties that I was actually interested in. Of course, when you think about it, that's basically 199 no's that I got until I got the first unit. But I did it every day, and I think after taking action from that first day I started, I think it only took me 2 weeks to get the keys to the unit.
And then in terms, I guess, 'cause I always look at it as like you work it backwards. Okay, so you want to get a property on board. To get a property on board, you've got to be able to put this many offers in. To put this many offers in, you've got to view this many properties and to view this many. So you're saying like potentially you had like 200 properties, and of those, how many viewings do you think you went on before you got, your first? Well, how many viewings? Yeah, how many viewings do you think you went on before you got your first deal?
I think it was like 30 viewings a week.
That's a lot. It's a lot of viewings.
Yeah.
And you were putting in offers regularly, or were there a lot of properties that you were seeing and that unfortunately this just doesn't stack?
I think at the time,
just putting in offers everywhere.
I was putting offers in there because I was so desperate. But that's something that I wouldn't do because it's not worth my time anymore. But of course, when you're first starting out, you don't know what you're doing. I think with me, it was a trial and error. So just seeing, whoever says yes, I'll just go.
That's it. Because I think the thing is, like, whether it's property, whether it's rent to rent to HMO, development, so you have to be careful of the term of your contract. But a lot of the time, your first deal is not going to be your best deal because there's a lot of learning curves, a lot of things that you realize, I might not have spent that much money on that bed linen, or I might have spent loads more because that one was way too cheap, or I might, not have done that feature wall, and all these things that you learn by doing. But I think for me, again, I'm like yourself, I didn't have a mentor. I'm more of an active learner. And I think I'd much rather even learn and break even and learn by doing, as opposed to paying somebody like loads of money and then still not have actually been able to practically do it and have to have had deal with the objection handling and all these other things. So you got your property on board, business partner, skill set locked in, objection handling. You're now saying, right, I want to grow this business. What processes did you then implement to actually grow from 1 to 12 properties?
I think the biggest thing was outsourcing as much as I can. So a lot of people don't know this, but for my first unit, I was the cleaner. So of course, I live in Coventry. The first unit's in Birmingham. I have a part-time job at the time. I think I was at uni at the time. I can't actually remember, but I definitely had the part-time job at the time. So I would have to travel to Birmingham, do the clean for like 3 hours. I'm not even a professional cleaner. I've never cleaned, an actual hotel. So there's a difference between cleaning my own room and then cleaning an actual.
And trying to do the bed sheets and get them all folded nicely.
Yeah. So there was like, with hotel cleaning, self-catering apartments cleaning, you have to make sure you're doing it the right way compared to, how you normally do it at your home. So, of course, I was a cleaner. I was going there, spent about 3 hours doing the clean, and then I'll go home. Of course, when you think about it, this does take a lot of time off my hands. Yeah. It's like a lot of stress. I have to balance different times. I have to go to work straight after, or it could be straight after work. And there was a lot of times where the guests would walk into like a messy apartment, because the way I was doing it was, anytime someone would book, then I'd go to the apartment to clean. I wouldn't clean after the checkout, if that makes sense. So
it's a learning curve. So you were still, you just make assumptions because you didn't maybe have that person to say that's not how you do it. Leena. You're just doing it the way that you think's best earlier on.
Yeah. So after that, I recorded it on Instagram, and then someone that's in the property industry, they said to me, "Why don't you outsource your cleans?" I said, what the hell does outsource mean? Because, of course, I'm only 19. I don't know about any of this, stuff. So they said outsource it. And then they said they actually have a cleaning company. I said, okay, let's get started. And I think from after then, I believe I started to learn
It
the
started to feel
value of
like less like
outsourcing.
a hustle and more like a business. I'm
Yeah,
guessing at
yeah.
that point. So you're outsourcing cleaners. Is there anything else that you're outsourcing at the moment, or any other systems that you
So right
implemented?
now I've got two VAs at the moment, and these VAs, they're based in the Philippines. I pay them about £3.20 an hour, and they're more skillful than me in customer service. So I don't personally like speaking to guests, and this could be slightly controversial because I own a customer service business, but I don't like speaking to guests. I can't personally handle that, and there's nothing wrong with that. If I can find someone, for example, a VA who can take that on, who can take the customer service, who can take all the complaints on, then yeah, that's why I've outsourced it to them, because it's not taking my energy away from me, and also it's not very income generating if I'm sitting at home talking to guests all day, because of course at 12 units there's a lot of people to speak to. So these two VAs, they've completely taken on the jobs where they're handling everything, and I'm focused on actual
Acquisitions, like
acquisition.
cash
Yeah,
generating
yeah,
areas of the
stuff that you
business.
can't really pay for. I'd say like negotiating and stuff like that.
And I guess also areas that you either enjoy or specialize in. Like you sound like somebody who's good at negotiating. You sound like somebody who's good at making a deal work. Now, I don't think the VA, regardless of the price point, is going to be able to do that as well as you. But I'm sure you can find a better cleaner and, like you said, somebody better in customer service. So got to 12 units now. I guess system wise, I know a lot of people think to themselves, like, how do I manage all of these things? Are there any, we hear a lot of stuff about different systems in the, in the Airbnb space, and, to obviously manage bookings across multiple platforms. What systems do you think you've implemented that have helped you?
You'd be surprised how many softwares there are. Of course, again, I was quite new to this, but we use this thing called a channel manager. Channel manager is where you can sync all your listings, so all your advertisements, onto one platform. And let's say if I get a booking on this platform, this other platform will be blocked off, the calendar will be blocked. So it saves myself from having to manually do it, because people, when you first start off, you've got one unit, it's easy, you can just manage it yourself. But when you've got about 12 units, you've got bookings coming right, left and centre. You need to make sure that if they've booked on this place, then this place is blocked.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think we use, I don't even know, because like my VA does, I think it's Uplisting.
Yeah, we use the same. So yeah, that's a good
yeah,
software
they're
to
decent. I think I don't know if it works apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. That's good to see. So what's like your do you, now that you've kind of stopped doing just offering on everywhere and kind of you've got more of a strategy, what's your like minimum monthly income you want to make when taking on a new unit now?
So minimum that I'd want is £800 per month minimum. I know a lot of people say, oh, if it's £500 per month, then you're good to go. But with the energy crisis right now, and a lot of stuff that's happening that's out of our control, I think having your unit to be making £800 per month minimum, I think that's probably the safest place to be.
I find quite interesting that when you were making less money, you were willing to take loads of risks.
Yeah.
Now you're making the money. Like, this is my money. I've got to keep it safe.
Yeah.
And I think, but that comes from growth, understanding that, you value your time more. So you were more than willing to take risks with your time and money. But now that you've built a business, you value your time, your expertise more, where you're saying, there's no point taking on a unit that's not making us enough money. And I think that's a really good point and a good growth point for you to identify for yourself. So what's next? What's next for the business? I know we spoke off camera. You said you got some big plans, but tell the people what's next for you.
Yeah, so one of my goals and one of my vision is to be in every continent. So have units in every single continent. But right now, I think Dubai is somewhere where I really want to expand to, and I'm hopefully going to be working on this year. Because I think Airbnb themselves, there was an article where they said that Dubai is probably the best place for having a short-term rental. And yeah, they do have a lot of regulations, and yeah, it's a bit more difficult to get into it, but I think that's more the beauty of it.
Exactly.
The more harder it is, the more rewarding.
Higher barriers to entry, the higher the profit should be. Effectively.
So yeah, that's somewhere where I definitely want to expand to.
Okay, so expanding firstly into Dubai, then into every continent.
Yeah.
What else? I know you said something else. You told me in regards to the UK. You said ownership, right? You said you wanted to buy your first property.
Yeah. So I'm looking to hopefully, again this year, hopefully, buy a few units. Because yeah, it's nice to do rent to rent, but I actually want to own the actual asset. So I'm with this business. I think the main thing with making sure that you're the most profitable is having the most control. I think it all comes down to how much control do you actually have. For example, how much control do I have over the cleaning team? Because the cleaning team, they can turn around and just move away. If the cleaning team was actually mine, then I'd have more control over it. So yeah, I think owning my own unit, it would allow me to have more control over it, and it would be less. I'd be more bulletproof, if that makes sense. Like less likely to lose it in the future.
Yeah, internalize the process. That's
Yeah.
good that you want to do the ownership. And I think the good thing about your story is people can see that, you literally started, we don't want to say nothing, but you started on £400 from a part-time job, not necessarily with loads of money behind you. You had to go and do the legwork. I've seen you killing Dunelm. They need to give you a deal. So there's like thing like IKEA, all the places where you're getting your soft furnishings from. So you've been doing the hard graft. And you've taken that from a point and obviously built a business where you can now reinvest yourself and have these just not only national but global plans. I guess one thing that comes with success sometimes is like, you touched on earlier on not wanting to do business in your hometown of Coventry for a number of reasons. Like, have you found, any issues in terms of jealousy amongst your peers, that you've been doing really well?
So peers as in
Like your friend, like so friends, like age group sort of friends. Like what's the reception been like from the business?
to be fair, I've already I wouldn't say I have the most friends, because the friends that I used to have, they weren't on the mindset that I was on, and of course if they're not on the mindset that I'm on, then there's no point having them as friends. But I'd say family wise, what's the question, sorry?
Just like, how have you found the response? Because effectively, your earnings, your success has grown quite exponentially, quite quickly in a short space of time. And sometimes it can be really good in terms of people like, oh my God, they champion it, they want to help you. Whereas sometimes people can be quite negative and, maybe almost like you said, those friends that didn't have the best mindset want to tell you why it's not going to work. Or just be like, well, why are you not letting me stay in your accommodation for free? Like, you got a flat in Cov, can't I get the keys for the weekend?
Yeah, surprisingly, no one's actually asked me, can I stay in there for free?
Well, saying that, I'm actually doing 2 podcasts in Birmingham with Anthony Laville and somebody else next week, so I might be phoning you.
Yeah, let me know when you're done. I'm happy to give a discount.
No problem.
But yes, I'd say with family wise, although I am making a decent amount per month and per annually, I still think that they're not happy for it. They're not. I think it's because of the background I come from. They're just scared of, me just tripping over, or because I'm so young, I feel like the fear is still there with them. I feel like until I hit a point where it's 100% secure, or I don't know, when I have the nice cars or a nice house, I feel like then it will be like, oh wow, Leena, you're doing great. I feel like right now it's still like, oh Leena, what are you doing?
Well, I think I just coming from me and coming from people, like, I don't know you that well, but our conversations off camera, you just to let you know you are doing really well.
Yeah.
I know you probably don't need to hear it from me, but sometimes it's good to hear that I can see what you've done in this short space of time, and I see people that have run successful businesses have come from making a lot of money that have tried and failed. So you shouldn't take that as like, well, it's still coming. Like, you've done amazingly, and I get that you've got all of these big goals, like, and you want to smash it, but sometimes you have to look back and smell the roses to not get disenfranchised and feel like, oh, I've got all these things I want to achieve and it's not happened yet. Sometimes you just gotta, enjoy those wins along the way. And I feel like you have done. Like, I went on your social media, I saw you driving Ferraris in Dubai, I saw you enjoying. So you've had some moments where I guess, because where did you say you were working before?
So I used to work at Morrison's, but the last job I ever
Morrison's
had
don't provide Ferraris, so
yeah, they don't. Yeah, I posted that actually. It was of me working at Morrison's, and then 2 years later I'm in Lamborghini. But yeah,
exactly. There we go. And it's those little things, like, that's not necessarily the be all and end all, but it's like enjoying those things and taking time to smell the roses that I think are really important. So I guess, is there anywhere else you see in the property space? Like you said, you want to buy units, you want to focus on, when you buy those properties, you think you're going to bring them back into the business and have them as serviced accommodation units?
Yeah. So hopefully, I do want to have a few buy-to-lets for the security. But I definitely will be putting a lot of them on service accommodation because, with normal buy-to-lets, you make about £250 a month average. But with service accommodation, because the mortgage could potentially be slightly lower and I've got more control of it, I could be making a lot more from these units. And the best thing about it, I get the cash flow and I also get the capital appreciation. So yeah, I definitely want to be putting these these houses on service accommodation.
Well, you sound like you've really got everything together. You know what's going on. You've got a great trajectory in terms of where you are now versus where you want to be. For those that don't already have, contact details, where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so on Instagram it's Leena X Ahmed, and then I'm actually starting a YouTube channel soon, and
Let them know.
It will just be called Leena Ahmed. You can follow me on TikTok as well. It's LYC.
That's a good one. The TikTok one, just 3 letters, LYC.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I think make sure you connect with her. There's loads of great content out there, loads of inspirational stuff. Whether or not you want to see her apartments with the pool tables in them, whether or not you want to see her going from working in Morrison's to being in a Lamborghini, or just giving out great advice about how she actually got from A to B and those steps. I think you also do an element of education. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're actually looking at. Well, we've already started it. We're coaching people because we found a lot of people want to know what we do, and I'm a big believer in if we add value to someone, then for whatever way we will get our value back. Maybe from potentially joint venturing our mentees or having an investment opportunity with them. So yeah, we are doing coaching at the moment.
That's great to hear. I mean, there's so many great things you're doing. I think this is a great person to connect with, particularly because of her age. A lot of people will find that it's more relatable. So I think that would be an amazing person to connect with. This has been another episode of the Property by Kazy podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. And we'll be back next week for another episode.